like the redheaded stepchild to the ARP.
What?
To the ARP
what the fuck, Kizzo? You coming out of me with this hairist language? Okay, whoa. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a Kizzo Inc. video. It's called Why Plarium Doesn't Want You to Have Void Shards, the reality of Void Shards here by Kizzo and HG Senti. Now, I haven't seen this one yet, but it keeps getting recommended to me just like the previous one, and Kizzo went out of his way to tell me he's totally fine with me reacting to these. He enjoys watching the reaction. So I'm going to say thanks to Kizzo, and also I'm enjoying watching your videos, so we're going to go through and watch and see what we got today. Now, once again, get all the credit where credit's due. Link will be in the description. Go subscribe to his channel. Go like on this video. With all of that being said, let's get going because I want to know the reality of Void Shards.
So we are here today to talk about Void Shards. And honestly, what Plarium kind of does that's a little bit different than every other, gacha game developer that I've seen personally with the actual Void system. So one thing that we see in most gacha games is you have the red, the green, the blue system, and you have strong affinity, weak affinity based off of that. I call it like a rock, paper, scissors system. Obviously, green beats blue, red beats green, and so on and so forth. And there's usually
the most OG version of this is from 2001 RuneScape. I'm always going to use it as an example. It's the oldest game I know and my favorite game. They have range beats mage, mage beats warrior, warrior beats range. Combat triangle.
Two elements, usually a light and a dark that kind of exist outside that. And, that's kind of a cool way in most games, to take units that you have a history with that are already red, green, or blue, and then you give them like the dark side or the light side, right? So you might have, Siphi's kind of undead, so then you might have like
in Awakened Chaos era, they have light and dark heroes. It's literally called light and dark.
Holy version of Siphi, and that would be like the light
They're the
Siphi.
Void Shards, for instance.
We don't have that in Raid, we just have Void, right? So I want to kind of answer the question today of why Void Shards exist and why they're a little bit different than what we typically see, which is more often referred to as a moonlight system that exists within the red, blue, green system.
I've never heard it called moonlight, by the way.
With that, let's kind of get started. So the first thing I want you guys to understand is that you have KPIs. This is something that's consistent across all corporations, all businesses. You have key performance indicators. Those are things that businesses use to make sure that they're making progress year over year.
Okay,
right?
So let's pause this for a moment. I want to look at this. Calculation of key metric based of lifetime value, ARP, churn rate, retention rate. Dude, I bet the churn rate of these customers are crazy. Okay, he's going to go through this. How does RSA improve LT? Okay, so he's going to go through the math.
Your revenue might be a KPI. Your average sales price might be a KPI. Your production volume can be a KPI. Now, one thing that we've learned over time is that there's two key KPIs that Plarium focuses on. More importantly, that Aristocrat, which is the parent company,
I would think
one of them is the average return per user, which is the ARPU. Now, one thing that's interesting about this particular KPI is if you go look at the investor decks and the annual reports done by Aristocrat, which we do in several of my prior videos, they look at.
So what he's saying here is that basically they have public data for their finances. Like you can see their money in, their money out, all that is public record because you can pull their investor reports that they give for their investors in their company, which is what he's done in other videos. So definitely go check out his channel if you want to see those.
The ARPU on a daily basis. So it's actually the ARPDAU, right? Daily active user, which is, your average return on daily active user. So that's a key metric for them. The other one they focus on, and we actually got information on this a while back from a person that was a marketing consultant for Plarium.
Really?
The other one they focus on is the LTV. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. The LTV is like the redheaded stepchild to the ARP.
What? What the fuck, Kizzo? You coming out of me with this hairist language? Okay, whoa.
ARPDAU, right? And I think actually in Australia, they don't call it the average return. They call it the average bookings. So, a bunch of different ways to say essentially the same thing. Now, the daily aspect is interesting. In a different video that I've done that I'll link in the description below, I actually cover why it's important for their budget and the amount of marketing money that Plarium has spent to do that particular KPI on a daily basis. I think that's super fascinating. I think that's probably one of my favorite videos that I've ever done.
Just so you guys know, I don't understand any of this either.
Let's talk about LTV. So your LTV is the lifetime value of the customer. Right now, I do have something right here that shows you essentially how your lifetime value is calculated.
Okay.
So it's your average return per user over, your revenue of the user. That also dives into some stuff like what your churn rate is, which is your retention rate. Essentially, it's the total amount of money that the user is actually going to spend over their lifetime playing the game, right?
Okay.
So if you looked at your average return per daily user, that's pretty interesting, right? Because that really shows you how much money the game generates on a daily basis. But if you were to actually look at how much money each particular player
fascinating.
averages out the spending. That's another really interesting KPI, in my opinion. Now, we do know, like I said a minute ago, it's not a priority for Plarium. But one thing that I thought was really cool here is that HG Senti, he reached out to me, and that's actually really what he does for a living. He does marketing analytics. And he talked a lot about a theory that he had on void shards and LTV. So that's kind of the thesis of this video.
Okay, so we got the math out of the way a little bit.
Now, let's take a step back for just a second. Let's talk a little bit more about LTV. Now, typically a company is going to look at LTV, and
LTV once again being like lifetime value of the consumer. If you're wondering what LTV means, he's basically saying how much the person is worth to the game over time.
And what they're doing, as far as, their success is concerned. A good example of this would be like, whatever your favorite clothing line is. Let's say you like Banana Republic or Express. Sure. Those are just the two places I shop. Literally the only two, but that's beside the point, right? But essentially they'd be looking at somebody like me that likes their sales, and they'd say, this is how much money we get from, Kizzle on, his lifetime of spending basis. Okay. Now, the reason I continue to go back to those places is because I like the product. It's really that simple. They consistently put out a good product, so I keep showing back up.
I purchased a lot of
clothes. That is
Banana
normally
Republic.
how you improve the LTV. How does Plarium, or more importantly, Raid Shadow Legends, improve the LTV? That's different because, they are known to frequently, disrupt and frustrate their player base. I am one of the ones that has rage quit almost on a weekly, if not daily basis playing this game, right? So this is actually kind of fascinating. Now, when Senti proposed this video idea to me and kind of ran through the key points he would have on it, I thought it was a really cool collection of information. I thought it was just like, awesome, man. That's a really
because I'm gonna pause this real quick. What I'm doing, looking at this, this is cool to see all this stuff. I have no idea what this shit means. And I'm not, I get an idea of what he's explaining, okay, here, but I don't understand the point he's driving home at yet. So if you're wondering, if I understand what the fuck he's talking about, the answer is no.
Actual dive on something.
Not yet.
Now, when he talked about the fact that void shard scarcity is how they improve LTV, that's when I knew he had something. Now, to be honest with you guys, I haven't done a video like this before where I've articulated somebody else's thesis. Okay. Frankly, this is really much more Senti's thesis or opinion than mine or hypothesis.
Okay, so we're going to blame Senti.
That being said, scarcity is an important element in anything, right? It's really, in my opinion, the driving force behind cryptocurrency. It's something that you learn day one in macroeconomics. It's relative to almost anything and everything that involves a finite amount of something, right?
And it's the reason people are paying what could feed entire countries money for a link, which is a pointer that points to somewhere else where a JPEG is stored. People are paying upwards of $1 million for this garbage.
Now that's when I kind of started to think about it. I was like, wait, void shards actually do have scarcity. So let's dive into that a little bit here.
They do.
Actually, we're going to dive into that on the next page. Let's go over this for just a minute. So void shards in particular, right? They do something special in Raid. Now, again, I articulated this early on in the video, but typically your Void or your Moonlights is what you would normally have in a different game. They kind of allow you to really build brand loyalty, which is something we were talking about a moment ago, because of the fact that they work off the lore of the game, right? So if your main character, let's just say it's Hegemon for example, because his name's written right here. That's one reason I'm using it. Hegemon's on the dark path, right? Now suddenly Hegemon goes to the light path within the lore of the game, and he becomes a Moonlight unit. Now he kind of may in his light path have the opposite of his current kit. Maybe he goes last, which I don't.
Okay, so. To be honest, I don't think dark and light matter. I haven't seen a game where because a light hero that's completely fucking busted has a counter that's a dark hero, that they're no longer busted. Because of the scarcity that we've already addressed, the commonality of finding the counter to the one hero that is the god tier hero is fairly rare because they're forcing it into the dark category as well, which is why I'm not sure this really applies. Quite as much as he might think it does, but that's just my opinion, and we're only 7 minutes in.
I don't know what that would do for you, but that's just kind of the kind of things that you see within a game. That's how they build loyalty. They kind of draw you into the lore or the story that the game is telling, and then they give you a little spin on it by taking your favorite characters or your meta characters, and they put a different spin on them. They do a different design, and then essentially they have a different kit, different abilities, etc. So that's what you normally see, and I emphasize this in my second point here, with a dark and light system within an RGB system. I'm dyslexic, so I'm having a wonderful time articulating this right now.
Because it was dyslexic.
with that, you have to take a step back and think for a moment, why are there only voids though, right? Why isn't there the other side of it? Because, the whole point of having an affinity system is there's weak and strong.
I'm not sure that having like an anti to a void is going to suddenly change anything. But let's give it some time to see his argument as to why it would.
Now suddenly you have just a strong affinity or neutral affinity. If there's just a neutral affinity, then essentially it is the strong affinity in all situations. It doesn't have a weakness. It can't weak hit.
That's true.
That is huge.
But it can't strong hit too, which we haven't read.
So when you start to think about it from that aspect, there's precedent. Every other game does dark and light. Plarium only does dark. One thing we know for sure about Plarium is they're really not as interested in building a cool game. They're much more interested in monetizing the game.
That's completely true.
My, thought process and hypothesis after kind of reading through what Cynthia put together was the reason you don't have a light system within the void system is because that would sort of nerf the power of void because now it can weak hit, right? Now it has the same affinity.
See the argument to weak hits,
affinity weaknesses or affinity strengths as the rest of the units. It just has a smaller pool. That's what we typically see.
Now, I was thinking more from the counter aspect where like there's a counter that, Warlord gets shit on entirely by another guy who's the, the strong version of Void. In that aspect, I don't think it matters, but I understand his point about weak and strong hits. That's actually a pretty good point.
Here for a second, guys. We don't have that, so you kind of have this bizarre precedent to say that Void units are just going to be significantly stronger than every other unit. Now, I want you guys to think about that for a moment because it is true, relatively speaking.
But it's also fair, I feel like, because Void units, you can't hit strong against, sure, but you also can't hit weak against them. I mean, I feel like just because the Void units can't hit weak on anyone else, I mean, it's a fair trade is what I'm saying. Like, they receive the same negative part about what they're gaining.
But then think about the mega Void units. Warlord, Siphi, Hegemon, Krisk. Really, Warlord in and of itself defines this beyond better than I can. Those kits on Warlord, on Siphi, on Hegemon, they're completely unique. There's no other unit in the game that can do for you what Warlord or Hegemon can do, especially in the arena. Warlord in the arena for defense is, it is top tier meta. It's what you see all the guys in Sacred Pandas using.
And it's rare shards, so they hide everyone behind the rare shards.
And ironically, these aspects of the game where, spenders are spending the most amount of money because there's a competitive element, suddenly you have these completely unique kits that if you don't have it, essentially you're not going to be competitive.
More or less correct.
From that sort of thought process, it creates a significant demand amongst the competitive spenders, right, for them to actually have void shards because now it has no weak affinity, like we were saying before, because it doesn't participate in the full Moonlight system. Now it's really just its overpowered void system sitting in and of itself, right? And then you exacerbate that by looking at kits like Warlord's kit, Siphi's kit, Hegemon's kit.
The kit's definitely 100% correct.
Is a great example I didn't put in here.
100% correct.
You sort of think, wow, these are truly unique units that do things that, are incomparable to anything else in the game. So let's dive deeper into that for a moment, right? Let's take what we learned a little bit ago about the lifetime value.
So now we're going to put
how much money any average user is going to spend on the game, right? And let's look at specifically the whales, the Krakens. Now I'm going to tell you guys, I know of somebody, I'm not going to name them by name, but in Sacred Pandas that spent $70,000 on the game, right? Woo. That's what we're looking at the higher end of the whale spectrum. And I think there's probably people that spend even more. This is just someone I know personally, right? So think about this. You can't buy unlimited voids in the game today. You can max out at 55 per month. And I did rough math. I might be a little bit off there, but I believe 55 per month outside of any deals that you get on Void Summon weekends, more generally speaking, like the monthly packs and whatnot. That's just what's in the shop that you can buy today, right? Now, we have heard of cases of mega whales, Krakens. These are, terms for essentially the same thing. Coming in and buying ancient shards until they get every single meta unit in the game. Right?
Yeah, you can do that.
That's something we've heard about. Yeah. You can't do that with Void, right? You can't do that with Void summons, right? Now, there's a positive. I always like to point out a positive if there is one, which rarely is the case with Plarium. But it does prevent power creep. You can't start an account tomorrow and then suddenly show up and, you're competitive against, Panda. That's not going to happen, right? You actually have to have a significant account over a long period of time that's, dedicated to the game. And artifacts play a role in that too. But voids play a significant role, right? You can't just whale out and get every void unit. That's just not the way the game works, right?
Correct.
Now, there's a reason for that, and that's what's important. Let's sidestep from that for a moment. I love this point here. This is actually Senti's point.
This is, I was reading.
I think I was mentioning in a video that we've seen in the past that Plarium does not ban for account buying and selling. I mean,
so I want to pause this right here. They don't ban for buying accounts. I've never seen a confirmed case of someone who bought or sold an account that got banned either. As the people know, I do lots of giveaways. It's subscribe to this channel. We have a massive well account giveaway going on right now. Shout out to Chuck Norris for giving away his account that he spent thousands on. Thank you, sir. One of the subscribers is going to be getting that. But one of the things I do when I receive these giveaways is I tell the people, I'm like, look, if you get your account, just because you won the account, don't start spending money on it. Even though some of these people who give away these accounts, I've either known for years or been subs for years, I never put it past somebody that at some point they change their mind and are like, this is my account. I've spent thousands on it. My God, what did I do giving it away? And they recover their account. Anyone can recover their account with enough information. And I always tell the people who win this stuff, do not spend any money on anything that was not originally your created account, because I'm not saying it will, but it can get reversed. And then the person has the account they gave away plus the money spent on the account. I do believe people exist who give away their accounts purely for the reason of having other people spend money on them and recover them like a year later, the resale or something like this. I do believe these people exist. I don't think any of those accounts have been given away on this channel yet, but I believe that I've done a good job at filtering out people. I get way more people trying to give away their accounts than I actually show on here. And for the most part, I just tell people no thank you or don't even respond, because I go do a little bit of research or just look at the account and kind of eyeball and figure out, well, this guy probably didn't spend any money on this account. This looks like a free-to-play account. He's probably trying to give it away and then have somebody recover it, later on down the line. I'm careful with this kind of stuff. There was a similar scam back in RuneScape, which again is the game that I played, so it's the one thing I can reference, which is, to be fair, he's probably sick of me talking about RuneScape the same way I was sick of him talking about Epic 7, is that in RuneScape, same deal, only it came down to training, because they would give away an account that basically has nothing on it. The person would be like, oh, this is high level, would do the rest of the training, and then they recover it later, and it's been trained for free for like a year or something, and they would resell the account. So I do think the point about not banning is interesting, and I think Plarium's aware of all the things I just mentioned.
Communities where account buying and selling happens. I've, vouched for some people in that area before, and I can tell you guys that there's really no penalty for it. Now, obviously,
what's interesting is I got promoted by this, or got offered, I should say, because I declined it, to promote a website, a very well-known website that buys and sells Raid Shadow Legends accounts, and they were offering me thousands of dollars per video where I promoted, plus a percentage commission of anyone who used my link. And I told them to go pound sand, because even though it would be very monetarily beneficial for me and I could buy a fucking car finally, unfortunately, all that would really do is steal money from my viewers. And I'm one of these guys who doesn't promote NFT. I'm not going to promote shit that I know everyone else is farming their audience for. I will promote you guys BlueStacks. So if you want to support me, you can download Raid Shadow Legends, which you're already playing, through my link, and I'll make, enough money from one of your downloads if you're in the US to buy myself some lunch for the day. That's what I say. I get download a day. My audience is feeding me every single day as if I was a beggar on the street and you guys are literally handing me food. It's the same thing. I don't like promoting this shit that's about rug pulling your audience. I actually get really pissed off that people do that, and I get very disappointed when I see my friends do that.
If you look at the terms of service within the game, it's going to tell you that that's a violation of the TOS and that your account can be banned for it. But contact any mega whale that's been playing the game for a couple of years and ask them if they've ever heard of a single incident of somebody being banned for account buying and selling. Personally, I've been around this game for a long time. I've never heard of a single one.
I haven't heard of a single one either.
This is pretty cool. Think about that for a moment. Even if somebody playing the game today that's a mega whale that spent $10,000, $12,000, $15,000, whatever on the game.
Yep.
Let's say they go really hard for Siffy, or they go really hard for Hegemon during an event.
Yep.
My man Scratch, unfortunately,
here we go. Man, Scratch
felt that one himself, but we won't go
videos.
there. We'll leave that alone for right now. But think about that for a moment. If they get buyer's remorse and they quit the game, right?
Yes.
The account actually is still going to survive, because people that spend that kind of money on the game are smart enough to know that they can sell that account, at a significantly lower value than what they spent on it, but they can sell that account as they exit. And people that have spent that much money on the game know that that is the best way.
And just so you know, if you're sitting there thinking like, oh, wow, I bet I can make a ton of money off selling my account. Boys, we're talking less than 10 to 1. You spend $10,000 on it. If you get $500, you're feeling pretty good.
to remove themselves from the gacha cycle, right? That's what's going to keep them from spending that big amount of money and have that massive credit card, statement a second time or third or fourth or fifth, whatever it may be.
Correct.
Sell the account, get it away from you, move on.
Yeah, it's like quitting
now,
gambling.
since we, know anecdotally that they don't ban for that, this is what's fascinating. That might be intentional. Right? Because, think about the game like it's Pokemon, right? Essentially, you want to have every single unit. If you want to have every single, exclusive void unit that you absolutely must have to be competitive in the end game, right? And you're a whale or a kraken and you're returning to the game.
So back when I was playing the game fairly heavily, I constantly said, I want a test account. I want an account that's got everything. So I was trying to get Draco was the last hero I felt I needed to complete what was my test account because I had basically everything I wanted. I had everything I needed, I felt like, minus a Draco Morph. Once I got my Draco Morph, the game had evolved to a point where, I was so fucking behind, I might as well quit.
Are you going to return to the game and start from scratch? Or are you going to return to the game and buy an account that has, let's say, Siphi Warlord? Or has Warlord and Hegemon? Now, all you have to do is wait for a Siphi event, and then, you got them all, as a Pokemon expression would take us there, in full circle. So think about it from that perspective.
Real quick, because I've really just been watching this. I actually don't think people are buying and selling accounts as much as he thinks they are. I'm just going to say that. I do think this happens. I know this happens because, like I said, I've been offered to promote this type of stuff. I know other content creators that have promoted this type of stuff. I'm just going to call him out. Cartman, a Russian content creator, he promoted what, in my opinion, is basically a really bad thing to promote to the audiences. So I was very disappointed in him because I actually quite liked the guy. And then he was trying to also get me to promote the same fucking thing. And it's just, he was telling me the money he's making too off the stuff. And it's just like, dude, that's not cool. You can't. Promoting basically the black market stuff is passing the risk along to your viewer and then assuming all the monetary gains from their risk. So it's basically me saying, yes, I'm not 100% sure about everything, but any of the risk that happens will happen to you, not to me, because all I'm doing is collecting from the money you've spent, and then you're the one collecting upon the problems of which you've acquired. And for me, I've already made my point clear. I don't like these type of promotions.
Perspective for a moment. We might not see, you can't buy unlimited voids today to just get every single void unit. Right now, that creates the scarcity necessary to extend the lifetime value of the actual player. So essentially, the reason why we see voids have the overpowered nature that they currently have, right, in my opinion, and in Cinti's opinion as well for what it's worth, which honestly should be worth more than my opinion. But that extends the lifetime value of all players to a certain extent. It drastically extends the lifetime value, extends it for the mega whales and the krakens. And what's interesting is it ties the lifetime value to the account, not the player, right? Because the account presumably is probably going to be sold and bought 4, 5, 6 times over as it goes about its.
I think what you just said, the account's going to be bought 4, 5, 6 times over. And you're trusting every one of those people who have purchased it earlier to not try to recover it with some proof that they owned the account before, which they all have because they all did own the account before.
Process of collecting Warlord, Siphi, and the rest of the ones fill in the blanks. So think about that for a little bit. Right now, this is something that Cinti pointed out. This is what's interesting about this video. It's kind of a stream of consciousness. It's a lot of really cool facts, right? Putting it together in a cohesive way was a challenge, I'll be honest. And kind of having a thesis statement or a key point was also a challenge, right? Now, if I had one thus far, I would say, there's a reason that voids don't adhere to the normal system we've seen put together in other games, having a light side and a dark side, and kind of existing within the circle of the RGB system, but kind of among themselves, right? There's a reason there's just void, and because it creates more value in the actual void units. The other thing that creates more value in the void units is having kits that are irreplaceable, like Warlord's kit, for instance, right? You can't replace that. You can't do what Warlord does unless you have Warlord. That creates the demand to have those particular units if you want to be competitive in the in-game, especially in Platinum Arena. Right now, your average player is going to sit here right now and say, well, who cares? I don't do Platinum Arena. A lot of people do, though. A lot of people actually do compete in it. And for
enough people do Platinum Arena that they're making enough money off of it to focus on it.
You have to have those units. It's extremely important.
You do have to have those units. So
if you're going to go about getting those units, the best way to do it is through some process of account buying and selling, right? Buy an account that's been whaled on 3, 4 times over, has been, through the...
I just really don't think people are buying these accounts that as often. I mean, I think people are buying accounts, but I I don't think it's the upper echelon of the competitive guy. I feel like the guy who's wanting to compete in arena has to continue to spend money at a rate that they would make their own account because they have enough money to do that, or they're addicted enough that they're willing to spend 80% of their income or whatever on it. I don't believe it's the situation where it's a smart investor is the person who initially saves himself $10,000 by buying an account and then puts $50,000 into it in order to keep up. I just don't believe that is the average type of person. I think they typically are the type of person where it's like, it's my account, I own it, and they do it from start. They play the game, they get addicted to the game, and then they're spending tens of thousands of dollars and quit, and we never see that account again. I think that's much more likely because the type of person who's going to be spending tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars isn't trying to recoup their loss by getting a few $1,000s back. They typically don't care about that kind of money. They're driving their Teslas.
Wash and dry cycle, if you want to call it that, of buyer's remorse, and you pick it up and you take it across the finish line and finally get the SIFI. Now you're hyper competitive. I don't know this for a fact, but I would venture to say that within the top 10 people that place in Platinum Arena every week, and I hate to say this because it kind of goes against some of the folks I'm in a guild with, and I don't mean it to target them. Let's do it like this. Let's say within the top 30 that place in Platinum Arena, I would say at least 50% have bought or sold that account. I would say that probably, closer to 30% of them have bought and sold multiple accounts, right? So obviously Plarium's aware of this. It's very easy to track IP addresses. Why don't they ban it, right? I'm sure there's been numerous complaints specifically about people that may have that inside track.
They do mark it as suspicious. They'll tell you suspicious activity on your account if someone logs it in for multiple IPs.
Maybe the person that's consistently placing 8th wants to place first, decides that they're going to, report whoever is between that first and 8th gap. Right, that's a very simple thing to do. That's an easier way to compete, right, than sitting there and constantly wailing. We haven't really seen that. We haven't seen the bans, right? So it's a really interesting thing that the LTV is tied to the account, and that's enforced by the fact that Plarium doesn't ban, right? So this is probably the coolest thing in this video. I mean, when Cinti said this, I said, man, that's your thesis statement. So my thesis statement would be a little bit of a shortened version of what I just said, but simply that void units are completely overpowered and they don't participate, in the weak, strong affinity system, which they don't. They absolutely do not. And normally they would in other games, right? And they have kits that you can't replace, and the reason why is to create the demand, right? Now, when you have demand, a beautiful thing is to create scarcity. Now, this is forced scarcity because you can't just sit here and buy every single void unit, in the game like you could if you bought ancient shards until you presumably rolled every unit. Now, you might think to yourself, that's, possible but not feasible. We're not talking about what's feasible. We're talking about what's possible. You cannot do that with void shards, right? That's what creates the scarcity, right? Here's what's cool. So Cinti said, after you watch my last video saying that they should really make SIFI a banner unit. You should be able to have a guaranteed amount of rolls. After 120 rolls, you get SIFI.
So I think basically what we're getting to, the crux of his point here, is that SIFI and Warlord... Is he basically saying SIFI and Warlord make the world go around? Because that's what I'm trying to get at here. Like, it feels to me like the point is that basically they're rare enough hero and they're OP enough heroes, which both of these are correct points, by the way, that everyone sits around trying to pull them. I think that's correct if we're only talking about Platinum Arena. I know plenty of people that really want heroes that aren't good, that what they're excited about is just whatever, like Warlord. I mean, or War Chief, I should say, instead of Warlord. Like, there's people that just want to collect stuff they don't have. There's people that just want to try different heroes. I think more people exist that want to collect and try SIFI and Warlord than the other heroes. And by proxy, my TV's yelling. And by proxy, it makes a very good point by Kizzo here.
No matter what, right? Cinti kind of said, well, actually, if that happens, that's the beginning of the end. That's them, forwarding the lifetime value. That's them bringing the lifetime value forward, essentially, and cashing out. That is a really cool statement to make, in my opinion, right? So in Cinti's opinion, if we see them guarantee Warlord or SIFI, or I think Hegemon's fair to say too, if we see a guarantee, that would be reducing the overall lifetime value, but it would be pulling the lifetime value of the current player base forward in the attempt to cash out. So if you start to see...
So basically what he's saying is like... if they do a banner, he's almost arguing against himself from the previous point. Like if they do a banner like what he wanted previously for Sifi and Warlord, they're going to make a huge chunk of money, and then their money's going to fall off in the long term, which I completely agree with. I think, to be honest, the more this video goes on, the more I think it's kind of an obvious point of like, yeah, there's rare heroes in the game and we wanted to pull it. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that there's no like light dark. I think just by Void by itself is actually fine because of the way, like, yeah, you're right, they can't hit weak, but they also can't hit strong. Yes, no one can hit weak on them, but they also, or no one can hit strong on them, but no one can also hit weak on them. Like they have the benefit and negative exactly balanced. So I don't know about the whole light dark part. If I take that part out of this video, I think I see the point way clearer. That's how I see it.
If players start to see their numbers decline quite a bit, they could have a lash cash grab, and I'm sure it's somewhere in a deck or in a plan or an investment thesis that they can do this in some executive's office. Worst comes to worst, and we have a really bad 2 quarters. By quarter 3, right? By quarter 3, we can cash out by putting a banner on Sifi or Warlord. So that's kind of cool. It's a little bit of a crystal ball within this actual video to kind of point out some cool things that exist in the game today that you guys might not have thought about. Kind of give you some reason behind the forced scarcity of the Void Shards to kind of highlight the fact that, we have Void, but we don't have a typical system of dark and light within that Void system, right? That's unique in and of itself. But to also say that the overpowered Void units will never be on a banner, never have a pity, never have a guarantee, due to the fact that if you do, you'll be shortening the LTV and forwarding it. Man, that's cool to me. That's really interesting. So if you guys see Sifi or Warlord on banner, take Cinti's advice. Don't go for it. That means this game is dead officially. So essentially, you're not supposed to have the Void meta units ever. That was my
basically what his point is you can tell when Raid Shadow Legends is about to die when they're offering Sifi and Warlord. Counterpoint, or when there's other heroes that you're no longer supposed to have. Like when they have heroes that put Warlord and Sifi to shame, the goalposts will move and we'll be able to collect these heroes easier. I mean, the same way we have a 10x for Valkyrie right now. Valkyrie used to be the hero we were all chasing.
Closing line. Personally, that's something I wrote. That wasn't something Cinti wrote. I think that's very valid. I think, even if you were to by chance roll a Sifi and you have that just crazy luck, by the way, go buy a lottery ticket if you ever do that. But if you were to just pull a Sifi, that's not enough. Now you got to have Warlord, right? And then once you got Warlord, okay, cool. Now you have to have Hegemon. You're in that state. And honestly, if you pulled a Sifi, your best bet might be to sell your account. Right? Unless you're going to wail on it, but if you pull a Sifi, sell the account, now you have a great, spine or skeleton or beginning, if you want to call it that, for a mega whale to come in and push it all the way forward and drive it home.
The problem, here's the problem, dude. I hate this advice because, you sell your account. The actual best thing to do is sell your account for like $50 to a whale who spends $50,000 on it. Then you just recover your account back and you have your account back for that you spend $0 on. Or, $500 on or whatever, and you have a $50,000 account. That's the problem. I'm going to do a disclaimer again. Do not buy or sell accounts. You can get scammed. Like this, I really wish we were addressing this point in this video more. I understand it happens and people don't get banned, but that doesn't mean people don't get scammed. They just don't have a voice. When some random guy gets scammed and is sitting there like, thank you, DM, I bought an account, I got fucking scammed. He has no one to speak for him. Okay, that viewer has no one to speak for him. And unfortunately, I kind of wish we were addressing that point.
So guys, this was a different video for me. I really enjoyed doing it. I did it in one take, so there's probably some errors in it, but honestly, it's a difficult one to kind of summarize. Cinti is an extremely smart guy. When he sent me sort of his thought process behind this, I thought, man, there's something really cool in there. I don't really know how to make it into a compelling story, though. It's sort of just an semblance of really interesting facts, right? And that's okay. I actually like that. But you guys, let me know in the comments below what you think. If you like this kind of video, if you think it was concise, if you think I kind of could have told the story a little bit better, because maybe there's a way to follow up to this and actually articulate it a bit better.
Last 30 seconds
I like to think sometimes I can articulate things well, but this was a tough one. Force scarcity on Void Shards is a kind of a complex thing to talk through, especially when you tie it to a KPI like the LTV. But I decided to go for it and see what we could do. So with that, guys, I want you guys to know we are streaming on Twitch Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Lately, we've been doing a lot of Awakened Chaos Era. But Celastro is back. He's helping me do it. It's been a ton of fun. But
all right, so my boy Kizzo, go subscribe to him. Links here in the description down below, etc. Go check out all his stuff. Here's the thing. I kind of want to wrap this up with some points. Completely agree that you're meant to chase Sifi and Warlord. That's the magic, Puff the Magic Dragon, the first high that we're all chasing, okay? That's basically Sifi and Warlord. We all understand this. I actually don't think it's that complicated of a point. I think it's right. The whole affinity thing, I don't think goes into play as much as he thinks it does. I think it's personally just about the chasing the kits. I think the kits he's 100% spot on about, but maybe I'm wrong about the affinity. You can let me know. I was wrong about some of the other stuff in the other reaction video I did, so maybe I'm wrong about that one too. I really, really hate the entire conversation about buy and sell accounts. Pure hatred for this. Just because in the same way that I believe it's a really bad thing to promote for your audience like NFTs or any type, basically anything where you think you know what the fuck you're talking about, but there lies a possibility for some random guy who has no voice and no way to communicate that he got scammed because he listened to you. I hate doing promotions like that, and so I'm just going to do a giant disclaimer here at the end and say never buy or sell accounts. I guess if you sell it, there's something you get crypto for. There's some way where it's like you have your money and the guy can go fuck himself. There's no way of doing it, but the risk always falls on the buyer, and for that reason, it's just not a good idea. The rest of that, I think, fantastic video. The point, I think, when he gets into the math here, all of this math, when we look back with the knowledge we've gained, this makes sense. Maybe not the actual algebra here, because to be honest, like I'm not that great at math, but I understand all the points he's making here, and I think he really had something when he gets to the part about Warlord, Sifi, and Hegemon are unlike any other kits in the game. Like they have a unique kit, and we're chasing that on purpose. Love you, Kizzo. Great job. Make some more videos that I can talk over the top of for a half hour, because I love all of these. All right, bye-bye, everybody.